Welcome to bQuest Connect, a forum for discussing important and relevant topics related to aging, end of life, and death. First, a few introductions. What is bQuest? bQuest is a curated collective of local vetted professionals that exist to guide and support families along the journey of life and loss. You'll have an opportunity to meet 3 of those professionals here today. We work to positively impact the universal human experience of aging, end of life, and death, really for our family caregivers and their loved ones. So let's talk about our topic for today: love and life transitions, making the tough decisions. And I'm going to get to introductions here for our 3 professionals. But first, I want to talk about this theme because that's pretty broad, life transitions. That can mean a lot of things. But what we're talking about here is when someone is at the stage of life where it might be time to look at moving from a home that they've called home for many years to a senior living community and everything that goes along with that. As family caregivers, we love our family and we want to make the right decision, but sometimes it's really hard. So we're going to talk about, Cameron, about really how do you make that decision? What things do you think about? We're going to talk to Chad about once you make that decision, what's next? What do we do with the home? And then Cierra will help us understand how do we navigate making those decisions around our personal belongings, many that we've had for perhaps decades of our life. So let's get into our introductions here, and then we'll dive in. So first, Cameron Crawford. Cameron is the daughter of a mom with Alzheimer's, a long-distance caregiver, and the owner of NEXTSTEPS Senior Living. A certified senior advisor, Cameron started NEXTSTEPS Senior Placement in 2018. NEXTSTEPS is a free service to families to help them find the best living options for the seniors in their lives. Side note, Cameron also started an incredible Facebook group called Aging Parent Tribe. If you don't know about it, you got to check it out. Thanks for being here, Cameron.
Of course.
Next, we have Chad. Chad Hartmann is a real estate agent specializing in helping older adults manage life transitions, including downsizing and moving to senior communities. He has built his professional career providing unparalleled service to his customers, partners, and business associates, and prides himself on lasting partnerships based on trust, integrity, and dedication. Thanks for being here, Chad.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Cierra. Cierra Olmsted is the owner of A Move Handle with Care, LLC, a local women-owned move management business that has been servicing the Denver metro area since 2007, just a few years, Cierra. An elite member of the National Association of Move Managers Diamond Society since 2007, A Move Handle with Care, LLC has earned recognition as a senior move management company with an elevated level of expertise and experience. Thanks for being here, Cierra.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with Cameron here. Cameron, you've been supporting families as a senior placement specialist for some time. And honestly, I don't think everyone knows what that is. So I'm really excited for you to share a little bit more about your specific role. But I am also curious, when a family reaches out to you wanting to explore a new home for their loved one, what happens next? And how do you help them navigate this important decision?
Thank you. Well, I got into this as a daughter when I started to look for places for my own mom. I felt like I just wish that somebody knew more than I did. And I wished I had kind of that big sister or a best friend walking beside me, somebody that knew what they were doing. And, senior living is like this little niche that you don't know anything about until all of a sudden you need to know everything about it right then. And you need to make really important decisions that are including everything you've avoided talking about. It includes finances, it includes health, it includes, so everything is encompassed, and all of a sudden you need to make this decision a lot of times really quickly. So I decided to start a placement company to help families decide what their needs are, and looking mainly at kind of the big 3. We look at what their budget is, because you can't avoid talking about money, and that's a real issue. You need to be able to talk about what somebody's care needs are or their socialization needs. And then you also want to talk about what's a great location for the whole family. So I kind of help families look at all of this and pick the places that would fit those 3 criterias for them. Now, when I decided to do this, I told my dad, and he said, I don't think that's a job. And I said, well, actually, it is a job. And he's like, if it was a job, I would have heard of it before. And so typically it's a free service to families because we're compensated by the communities. And a lot of times people wonder if that's going to limit your options. So where you get to look, but a good placement agent should, number one, hear everything that you need, and then also take you to the right places and not be limited, even if it's, I know plenty of placement agents that are local that will take you to places, even if they don't have contracts, because it's the right place to do or the right thing to do. So when families call me, usually no one jumps up and down and is super excited and says, oh my gosh, it's time for assisted living. I've been waiting for this. But when they call, it's because something's happened. And some of the things listed here are a lot of the red flags that might trigger a family to reach out to us. I hear from a lot of people right after Christmas because they maybe haven't seen their parents in a few months and they go see them for the holidays. And then they're like, holy cow, this isn't working. Some of it could be physical health. Now that could be something like all of a sudden you're noticing they're falling more often. They're calling lift assist. Difficulty managing meds can be a part of that. The number one reason that seniors go to ER is because there's been some type of med mismanagement. And so that's a big reason why people reach out. Could be functional independence. They're not eating well. I took a guy on a tour and the sweet salesperson looked at him when we walked in and said, why don't we sit and eat lunch before we do anything else? Because he wasn't eating. And so, you know, if you're noticing they're not eating, you're noticing they're having hygiene issues, mobility can be an issue. They're tripping, they're stumbling, they're not using their walker very often, even though they've promised you they would. They're not driving anymore, or when they are driving, they're getting lost. So lots of concerns with that. Safety is a huge issue. Can they call 911? A lot of times people buy their parents the little pendant, the push for an emergency, but can your parent actually use that successfully to call someone if they need help? Would they let a stranger into their house? It's so interesting how many times our parents will argue with an adult child and not necessarily listen to them, but they'll let a total stranger into their house, or they'll give them financially information to someone they don't even know, even though they won't share that with their kids. So where are they on the safety awareness? Is their home safe? And I live in Colorado, and I think half of us have to move because of stairs. So whoever built houses in Colorado didn't think about an aging population, and everyone has stairs, or they have a bathtub they have to step over to get into the shower. So what does their home environment look like? Are they taking care of their pets there? Are the pets being neglected? Are there a lot of dead plants around? Are they emptying their trash? What's their cognitive and emotional well-being? Are they calling you all the time because they're scared? Nobody wants to live in a state where you are anxious and scared to be in your own house. And it's interesting, a lot of times adult kids might fight to keep their parents at home, but the parents don't even feel like it's safe for them anymore. They're not exactly sure where they are and they're confused. And so, are there signs of dementia? Just because you have dementia doesn't mean you have to move right away, but is it beginning to affect their everyday life where it's not safe? Or if there's not another person in the house that's able to help oversee that? What type of engagement are they having? You know, every professional here can tell you that COVID and isolation was detrimental to our seniors. And, you know, would they benefit? They don't have to be the most social person in the world, and it's not like Disneyland, but would they benefit by having other people to sit and talk with at meals? Would they benefit by going to a book club that's offered? So how can they, are they getting any type of social interaction at home, or are they kind of stuck at home by themselves? And then feedback from others. Listening to neighbors, if a neighbor is calling you and telling you that they're concerned about your mom, that's a problem. And it probably means you have passed the point that we need to even have this discussion. It's probably not safe for mom to be there, because they're seeing your mom on a day-to-day basis, either lost outside, confused at her mailbox, she's fallen in the front yard. And so it's really valuable to listen to that feedback. And then, are they happy? Now, just because I will not ever tell anyone this is an easy transition or an easy move. But I've spoken with people that have become so isolated in their home. One lady looked at me and she goes, I just wish I would die. And I'm like, well, you're not dead. I don't think you're dying anytime soon. So let's find somewhere where you can have a little bit more joy and happiness. And what would bring that to you? Because it's not happening here in your apartment, and you're not happy here. I can't guarantee you're going to be happy every day somewhere else, but at least let's see what we can do to offer you more opportunities, so that you can have some more satisfaction and more happiness. And then what kind of community do they have around you? If I'm an out-of-state caregiver, I can only make this happen for my mom because my brother's in state. So, or do you have a team of people that are around your parent and that can help them? So these are kind of the things that you might stop in and see your mom and be like, that doesn't seem right. Or I just noticed all her pots are burned on the bottom because she's forgetting to turn the oven off. So all kinds of things that can work together to say it's time to look at changing our living situation.
I think that's really helpful, Cameron. It's almost like a checklist, right? You said red flags, is you can look at each one of these items and say, okay, how is she physical health, functional independence, mobility, and really get an assessment, do their own assessment as to, okay, is this something that we need to consider? And if so, it doesn't make it any easier, as you mentioned, this can be tough. These are tough decisions that adult children often have to be a big part of making those decisions. But, if you go down the checklist and quite a few of these are checked, then it's probably important to take the next step and talk to us a little bit about what that is. So if a number of these are checked and the adult child or our older adult just wants to start exploring what senior living looks like, what's the next step? How can you help them with that?
Sure. I really advocate that you connect with a local placement agent. If you go to npralliance.org, there are vetted agents on there. Or if you go to your platform, you can find who y'all are recommending in your area. But find somebody local, because they are in and out of these places every day. They know who's running them. They are familiar with the care history and the background of the places and who manages it. And so work with somebody local that can give you more insight. So usually you connect first. I do an intake call where I ask about 6 pages worth of questions. And we look at everything, looking more of a deep dive into what are your finances, what are different pockets of money that you might have. Do you have a long-term care policy? Do we need to be planning for a spin down to Medicaid? You want to get a pretty good financial picture. We go into care history and what are your care needs? Everything from, is someone incontinent? Do they need assistance showering? Do they not have any care needs? A lot of times someone can move into senior living on an independent level. They just need a couple of little tweaks to keep them independent. They don't need cares and showers and things like that. They just need a little bit to keep them more independent and get back onto their life and enjoying it. And then the next thing we look at is what location want, and then everything from, do you have a dog? Do you want a mountain view? The agent should be asking you all these types of questions. Then they put all that into a little mix. I say it's kind of like the love connection. They should come up with 3 or 4 good choices that fit you. And then they'll review those with you. You can say, this one looks right, or, oh, my brother lived here and we hated it. We want something else. And they should adjust to you because it's your parent or it's you and it's your money. So we want to make sure it fits you and not the placement person. The placement person is to give you insight to what's available. And then the next thing they should do is set up your tours, meet you on the tours, tour with you, kind of be like their job is to give you all the information, answer all your questions, advocate for you, and then help you through the process from there.
Cameron, what's the number these days along the Front Range? How many senior living communities do we have here in the Front Range of Denver?
I think it's 460 around there, which
I
is
mean,
a lot.
That's incredible, right? It's incredible. It's great because that means that there's a lot of choice out there, which we all love choice. But
Mhm.
gosh, I can't imagine having to navigate that and identify, how do I narrow it down from over 400 down to 10, right? That then we can take a closer look at and tour. And I don't think you want to just pick whatever's closest to where you are now. That makes sense from a comfort level, right? Especially if your family is nearby. But there are a lot of other factors that you mentioned that are so important to making sure that it's the right fit. And you don't want to pick something quickly and then move in and then be like, wow, this isn't a good fit, right? To go through the whole process again. So that's
Well,
how.
it's expensive and it's stressful. So if you can do it once and get a good fit, that's the way to do it. And
The last question I have for you is, I imagine that part of your job is to be a little bit of a counselor. I imagine if I was working with you on behalf of my mom, again, this is a huge transition. This is a huge life change. And as the adult child, you want to be making the right decision. That's everything there is about love, right? You want to do right for your loved one. So is there that aspect too, where you're kind of working through saying, look at this pragmatically, but also, look at your heart and know what's right for your loved one?
it is, and with all of these jobs of everyone today, you have like the practical, logistic, financial, all this side, and then you have a huge emotional side. Guilt from them, guilt that you put on yourself. You want the best from them. And some caregivers are so worn out and tired because they are everything to their loved one. They are the cook, the driver, the house, they do everything and they are worn out. And so for them to be able to go back, you never stop advocating. You're always their first caregiver. But if you can go back to taking a daughter or son role, or a spousal role, that's a relief. And then you have this team around you that you can support, that can support you.
Yeah, that's really great. Really good advice, from the checklist to kind of what the next steps are, Cameron. Thanks so much for sharing that. So let's assume that a family has gone through this process and they found a great home, right? Really the next step is what? Well, we have a home that we no longer need. And so I want to kick it over to Chad Hartmann. Chad, you're a real estate agent, but you really specialize in working with older adults, right? Making these important life transitions, which adds an extra element to what the family's going through. So tell us a little bit about how you specialize in supporting, older adults as they're making this next big decision of what do we do with our home?
Yeah. So, I mean, it is, to us, it's so much more than just a real estate transaction, right? Like, it's so much more than just selling somebody's home. Because there's so many different aspects and elements to what we're doing and how we're supporting the family, the kids, the aging adult. Just like the rest of the panel, it's really having the compassion and the patience to help support them through this journey, this next step of their life, which really should be exciting. But like Cameron said, usually people aren't jumping up and down and saying, yes, I'm moving and I'm, leaving my house that I've lived in for 50 years, right? My colleague Matt, who's our client services coordinator, and I have over 30 years of experience, and our background really comes from hospice and palliative care. And being in those conversations and supporting people at that time of their life we have brought a lot of that expertise now over to what we're doing on helping people on the real estate end of things. And really the number one thing when we sit down with people is just listening, right? Like it's hearing what is going on with them. What are they struggling with? What are they excited about? And how can we help support them then with what we're doing? It's how do we help the family navigate the conversation, right? Like if they're just starting talking to their mother or father or grandparent about possibly selling their home, like how do we help support them with that in their journey? And really giving them the time and space that they need to really absorb what's happening, right? So many times, again, like Cameron said, like people look at this as a negative time. But when you look at the studies out there and you look at people that are socially isolated, when they get to go to a community and be around people and have activities and use their brain, they're living longer. They're so much happier. They go to happy hour and have so much fun, right? Like, and those are the things that we're thinking about when we're working through this process with them. I mean, we've been asked to be part of the conversation right at the beginning. We have a gentleman now, he's 94 years old. He lost his wife about 5 years ago, lives on his own, and his family is just scared to death about like, what is he going to do? Is he going to fall? Is he taking care of himself? So they have asked us to come in and really start talking to him about what does this look like for you, right? And Matt's actually been doing it. And met with this family and the elder, I think 3 or 4 times now. In the last meeting, he finally said, if I'm even going to think about this, I want a place that I can go that I can play bridge. My wife and I used to always play bridge. And we're like, great, let's look at that, right? So then we start talking about, okay, we need somebody like Cameron. Like, let's bring somebody else in who can help you find the place where you can play bridge and you can be happy. And it's just taking the time to have those conversations, right? It's also having some of that knowledge when you're sitting with the person and saying, does this person have the cognitive ability to make this decision? Because we've seen times when that hasn't been the case, but they've signed all the real estate documentation and the family finds out and they're like, oh my God, what is happening, right? And it's having that expertise to be able to say, I think we need to get in touch with the financial power of attorney and bring them into this conversation about what we're doing and what we're looking at. And I think those are the things that we love the most about what we do. Selling the house is great, but having the conversations, being part of that is what we love dearly, actually. And then I think the next step for us is, what is the goal of selling the home, right? Has something occurred, like there's been a fall, or they've seen a decrease in cognitive ability to where the aging adult isn't safe living at home. And the goal is, we've got to get them placed somewhere else. We've got to sell this property fast because we need the money to be able to financially do this. Or is the goal to optimize the property? Are we looking at spending some time and energy into fixing things up? And then helping them with, what does that look like? What are the places that we should be focusing on to optimize the best price for this property? And we're doing that no matter what situation that is. But they're just different situations, and they kind of take you down different pathways. But either way, part of what I provide is, I'm a certified home stager. So I help them stage their home so that we can maximize the buying potential, so that when a buyer comes into the home, every buyer, no matter who it is, can visualize themselves living in the property. It's funny, but a lot of people can't do that, right? So we need to help them a little bit with that. How do we stage the furniture? It's taking away some of the personal stuff that's in the home, which again can bring up a lot of hard emotional aspects to the aging adult, right? And so it's having conversations with them. Okay, we're going to take this down. We're going to put a pin in it. We're just going to put it over here, right? And then we're going to bring somebody like Cierra in that can then help with, how do we navigate through that, right? How do we go through all of our stuff? What is it that we need to keep? What is it that we need to get rid of? But again, it's all part of the process of what we're doing. Then I think one of our main goals, and Cameron, you touched on this, is allowing the family member, the son, the daughter, the caregiver, to be the son, the daughter, the caregiver, right? And taking some of that heavy lifting off of them. So, if there are things that we need to do, we need to find contractors, we need to find a handyman, an electrician. If they have a lot of furniture and they're like, we need to do an estate sale, like, what are we going to do with all of this? We take some of that burden off so that they can focus on being the family member and the loved one. We make those phone calls. We help give the handyman, here's what's going on, here's what we need, here's the timeline. We take that off of them so that they can focus on other things. And I think that's what I get so excited about when we met for the first time, Lauren, about bQuest and the platform, and now we're here and it's real and we're doing this, because all of the resources that come together, we're able to fit all the puzzle pieces together, right? Because there's so many different puzzle pieces depending on what's going on. And as I meet the professionals of this platform, the compassion that people have for helping our aging adults out in the community is frankly overwhelming. But it also is such an honor to be part of this process, and to help people through this time in their life.
Yeah, I would second that, Chad. It's really special. Last week when we had our professionals in one room, it was overwhelming because everyone there has a business, right? They have a role, but it's way more than that for all of our professionals, and you can tell by listening to you talk about it, and Cameron and Cierra as well, is that yes, you provide a service, but it's way more than that, and that's why, there are a lot of realtors out there. But when we went about the process of identifying which realtors we want part of our community, they have to be specialized. Like you said, you have to be willing to go the distance for your client. It's not just about, hey, let's get in and let's make this a quick transaction. It's about taking the time to understand what they're going through, because there might be a lot there to unpack. And
Absolutely.
then take the time to understand, okay, now we're ready to make this transition. What's next? What do we need to do to the home, right? What do we need to do to make you comfortable? How can we get you connected to other professionals that can make this transition easy? Because many times when it's a big life transition like this, it takes a team. And that's why we're so excited about bringing the three of you together for this topic, is because this is a big life transition. And, for a family caregiver, being able to lean on not one person, not two, but three or more, that's really where the support comes in. So I appreciate you sharing that. And Chad, we're just, we're thrilled that you're able to bring your background, and Matt as well, of understanding what families are going through during end of life, because I think that brings a really special element to what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And with that, we want to transition to Cierra. The third step of this big life transition is really, it can be heavy. And I want to hear Cierra share some stories of how she works with families, because again, similar to a realtor, Cierra does a lot more than just a move manager, right? A move coordinator. She is specialized in working with seniors, our aging population and family caregivers. Because when they do get to that point where they say, okay, we picked a new home, right? We figured out how we're going to sell our home. Now it's, man, look around this house. There are decades of memories here potentially, and a lot of stuff. And man, I would be overwhelmed. I would not even know where to begin. So Cierra, help us understand, when you start working with a client, a senior that's made that decision to move, where do you begin? Tell us about the support you provide as well as services.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So at A Move Handled with Care, we are a move management company, and that's really kind of the key first word when people are starting to look older in life, downsizing, relocating, because it goes so much deeper than just that mover who's just going to pack and move your stuff. And really where we come into the picture is, helping people navigate just the emotions, right? So there's three of those really main key things. You've got the memories, you've got the actual value, and then you have the family, which kind of goes into that memory, which makes it so hard. And so we've really employed a lot of great strategies to help people navigate this process in a very honoring way to themselves and to their families. And one of those things that we've really done is helping them create this legacy list. So, what that means is if you clear your dining room table and you can only take what fits on your dining room table, what is going to live your legacy and what are those pieces going to say about you? Because you can't take everything. And so, that box that's always lived in the basement that just moves with you to every single house and it's just the box, that may not be your legacy, because it doesn't really say who you are as a person to you or your family members. And so we help them navigate these and really walk through, like, have you touched it in a month? Does that go in the maybe pile because we don't use it? Or 6 months, like, now we're probably not going to use it. And for sure, if you haven't used things in a year, unless it's a seasonal item, like, decorations or something recreational, then the likelihood is you're not going to be using them. And so again, it goes back to that legacy list of, is this really you, and is this who you are going to be in this new living situation and who you want to continue to be in this? And we do that through a lot of support of setting goals and timelines and just helping people know where to start, because that's the biggest problem too, obviously, is we're really good at having these large houses and just shutting the basement door and leaving everything down in there. And two, the biggest thing too is, how do you execute this plan? So you can keep stuff, you can give stuff, and you can donate stuff, but a lot of times those piles start to get so overwhelming that it's like, well, I got to get them out, or how do I even get them to donations? Who takes this stuff? Who buys these things? And, how do you go about even getting them to places? And so that's really where, we come in and be the boots on the ground, not only to hold hands and be emotional, help them navigate those emotional times, but, we'll sit down, we'll downsize with them, we'll declutter, we'll start to take stuff away for them, call junk haulers, call estate planners, figure out, maybe they've got that really rare grandfather clock that they've cherished and loved, but the client says, that's not my legacy anymore, that was my grandmother's and she loved it, and yeah, I took it because it was my grandmother's, but I don't necessarily love the item. And so it's kind of talking through all of those, is how do you figure out what is on that legacy list, and then also what doesn't go, finding those special buyers and things like that. And then one of the biggest pieces is, this is how we work a lot with Cameron and Chad, is, okay, if you know where you're going, how do we decide, do you take the 8-foot couch, or do you take the 2-foot love seat, or the 4-foot kind of oversized love seat, and what's going to fit the best in your new location so that you can walk around safely and you're not having to shuffle, or maybe you do have some mobility and so you've got a walker or a cane or whatever, that we can walk safely. And so we'll do some space planning with them and help them figure out where things specifically are going to go. And then we do offer that full unpacking and moving and packing services, which, to Chad's point, and even Cameron too, is huge, because let us be those boots on the ground. It's really hard to be the daughter, the son, the caretaker, whatever the role is, and physically perform everything else. At this time, when we get called in, especially for assisted living moves, people are so burnt out just from carrying this. Like, let us take that burden. Let us pack. This is what we do for a living. We know the exact supplies to bring, how much, what's going to go best where. And then that helps with that unpacking side, because our goal is at the end of move day, which is usually just the packing and moving is usually a day to, could be extended to a 3-day process. But at that last day, that is when everything's done. Your bed's made, your pictures are hung, everything's put away. You don't have that box that we don't know what's in it, but it's going to stay in your closet and just be the box. And then we also help coordinate that. So we work with people like Cameron and making sure that our timelines are working with the community and those move-in dates, and as well as with Chad and real estate agents, because the goal here is that you want to maximize your legacy, not only in personal items, but also financially. And so the idea is the value is not in the stuff in the house, it's in the house. So let's maximize on that and try to maximize on the market, make sure that we get it on the market at the right time, or, whatever it might be. Or if you obviously are under contracts, we want to get you out in time so that you're not having to pay additional fees to stay in that home. But really it's that full service, not only just let us physically do stuff, but let us help you emotionally walk through this. And, one of my favorite stories is actually a personal story that I have, is my business partner and I both have moved our family members. And it's funny because we look at each other and we go, why did I take on my family move and you take on your family move? We should have reversed that. We should have given each other our families, because families are complicated and there's a lot of backstory and history. And so when I had to be the one downsizing my grandparents' house and, having conversations with my mom and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins, I got emotional and I got, kind of confrontational with them, as where we see that in the background, but as the professional, we can really step in and say, hey, like, have you guys thought about this? Have you looked at this? And so it actually really helps calm down those emotional dynamics that start to come up, not because, you really want that picture, but it's because it's the memory behind it that you want. And that's really what you want to preserve. And so it's just funny how when you bring in a professional in these type of settings, especially, like Cameron was saying, is walking them through these steps, and no one's jumping up and down saying, yay, I get to move, this is amazing. But we can really help just really calm the environment and take the stress off of people. And so there's so much emotion that goes into it that we really have learned how to navigate, much more than just calling a mover and saying, hey, I got boxes and furniture and they need to go from A to B.
And I think that's what a lot of people think about, right? When you're a family caregiver and you're saying, okay, do I make the decision to hire someone to help with the move, or do I just do it? Maybe I'll call some buddies up. Maybe, they've got a truck or whatever it might be. I think they just think of the service aspect, right? And that could be the case for many movers. But this is why, you're so unique in what you do, in that you service our seniors, right? Making big life transitions. This isn't just moving to another house, right? This is a big life transition. And the fact that you have all of this support that you offer as well, I don't think a lot of people know that comes with it, right? And so that's why, we're so excited at bQuest to shine a light on our professionals, because, they bring so much more to the table for our family caregivers than a lot of people might think. And having, this type of forum where we can really highlight how you're going above and beyond to serve our families, making these big transitions, is just one of my favorite things about what we're doing. And so thank you for sharing all the additional stuff that you do, right? That does make this transition so much easier for our families.
Yep. And that's really a big part of it too, is that there's so many resources out there. You can Google stuff and you can find a million different things, but to execute it is what is the hardest. And how do you do that when you have 40, 50 years of stuff and only so much time to get it to 50 different places? And, and not being the expert, what is the right way? Because there is a lot of people out there that are going to take advantage of you in an emotional time. And so it really helps bring just those trusted, vetted, just like bQuest does, those vetted professionals into this.
I have the pleasure of speaking with every one of our professionals that joins us and becomes verified. And really the litmus test is for me is, would I hire this person to support me and my mom if we were making this transition? And obviously you guys are some of the best in the business. So we're so thrilled to have you as part of our community. So let's do some final thoughts. I'm going to share a few of my light bulb moments here, and then I want you guys to think about any final thoughts that you want to share with our viewers and our listeners here. 3 things from me. Love conquers all. Like that's a pretty common saying, right? But when I thought of that, I think of like, man, there are some really tough transitions that we just talked about, right? Making the decision to leave what you've known as your home, right? Making the decision to sell your home, right? Letting go of some things that you thought were part of your legacy that you now realize aren't. But yet love, support from your family, support from these professionals, that conquers all of the hard stuff. And to your point, Cierra, when you get to your new home and your bed's made and your pictures are hung and all your favorite things are there and your family's there celebrating with you, that is the wonderful. The second thing is specialization, right? Every professional on here goes above and beyond. They specialize in supporting our older adults going through these life transitions. So it's really, really important to find a professional that specializes in exactly what we're looking to do. So that's number 2. And number 3, we've talked about it, continuum of care, right? The ability to not lean on 1, 2, 3 people that can really help you at every stage of this transition. And by the way, there's a lot more along this journey of life and loss. We're talking about this one really important decision to make that transition, but there are so many others. There's end of life, there's after loss, right? There's early on in aging, there's planning and preparing. So many different aspects that if you can lean on trusted professionals that work together in the way that you see that these professionals do, that just makes the experience so much better. Okay, I'm going to stop talking because no one's here to listen to me. Do you guys have any final thoughts relative to what has been shared today?
I was thinking everybody was talking because I'm kind of like the first step. A lot of times when someone calls me, they're kind of paralyzed because I said, no one usually calls me on a good day. And so they call me, they're paralyzed. We go find a place. And then their next thing they say is, well, what about the house? And then the person that we're looking for usually says, and I've got so much stuff. And here's the deal. It is overwhelming. And as a spouse, or if it's you or as a caregiver, I know that you're used to doing everything on your own and you are an extremely capable, smart person. But to realize that there are all these niches that our whole job is to make it easier on you. And so would I know where to take my junk? No, but I know Cierra has the junk person on speed dial. And as I'm talking to her, she can text them and say, oh yeah, they'll pick it up on Tuesday. That would take me hours to research, figure it out. Where is it going? So we've all kind of created our own little networks for these tiny niches to care for loved ones. And so a platform like bQuest allows you to go in and find professionals you didn't even know existed and that you didn't know that you needed. So instead of being paralyzed, which is just so scary to be in that, find a team that can support you.
Yeah, I think to your point, Cameron, like I always say, it takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, village, right? And you're not in it alone. We're here to help you. And we have other resources that then we can bring in because I don't know everything. I've got my piece and I can help support. But it takes a village and it's okay to take a village. It really is. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. I would just last say too, the specialization, like that's just really it. Like it takes a village and we all specialize in different things so that, as Cameron said, like, I don't know all the retirement communities and what's the best, but same thing. I can text Cameron, hey, Cameron, like, how about this? Or can you reach out to this family, in real estate? Like, I don't know the values of homes, but it all really does come together. And some of our services are obviously, like Cameron is a free service depending on placement and where, and then Chad, a commission type of thing on a sale, and mine's a straight out, pay as you go or pay after the move type of situation. But it's like the investment that you make in this is that's really the value of it, is that it's worth the investment because you're not spending all this time and energy and hours to kind of get to a stopgap. Like Cameron said, like, I don't know who to call for shunt. That would take me hours. And, especially with that moving piece and that downsizing piece, it's super emotional and can be, super tough to deal with.
Mhm.
Oh, there's a lot to navigate. So we could be here for another 30 minutes, but we'll close. I want to thank the three of you so much for being on here and sharing your wisdom, sharing your expertise and your experience, sharing your stories. I love hearing stories of how you interact with families. Thank you for being here. To our viewers and our listeners, you can find these three on our digital platform, bQuest.com, as well as peers, as well as other specialists. We have over 20 different specialists that are there for you to lean on along this journey of life and loss. You can also find them here. We have their email addresses, their phone numbers, their websites. So please, if you have a need, reach out directly to them or come check us out on the bQuest. But for now, thank you. Until next time. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.